That's good. I think New England, when we moved there, first of all, when you were going to go there, we were not yet engaged. And then shortly thereafter, we got engaged when I was living in California. And then I was like, where is New England? Like, it was a time where I was moving somewhere.
Nobody from the South knows where New England is. like people, like, I'm going to New England. Yes, you are. Where is that on the map?
No idea. Nowhere. So I was moving to a new place, and it was, what I didn't know then was the beginning of moving to a lot of new places where I had to start over, so to speak. But I think that was the first time that God was really working on me with my identity, because before that, it was all about me and, my success and what I wanted to do, where I wanted to travel, where I wanted to live. And coming out of college, just having all these ideas for what I wanted to do. And now I was going to be married to a man who was taking me to New England. And I wasn't super excited. I was excited to be married and be with you. But it's like my job didn't transfer over when I was working in Atlanta, so I had to quit my job. Then I wasn't working, and then this whole kind of idea of what it meant to be an NFL wife, and the pressures that were not only in the circle, but outside of like what you're supposed to look like, dress like, act like. Why would you even want to work? And so I was getting pressed up against this whole identity thing. And I think many women probably feel that when you move with your husband somewhere and it seems like they're getting the spotlight and the success, and you're already a driven person, and now you have to find that in other ways. And so it was the first time where, and I remember a woman was like, you need to tell Benjamin how you're feeling, because you don't want to build up resentment because you're moving for him and you're not working because of him, and you're all because, everything is his fault. And it's so hard because you're feeling this way toward him, but everyone around him is loving him to death.
And then you have people that, would see us and be like, hey, can I get a picture? And then
ask me to take the picture.
Yeah, and then hand you do we have camera phones back then? Hand you the
whatever it was. Ask me to take a picture.
Hand you the camera and be like, can you take the picture? And I'd be like, I learned really quickly. That's nothing I learned of that. I learned really quickly that you're about to shut that down. Like, do not, like, as soon as I would see somebody about to do that, I would either preemptively say.
In the beginning, you didn't. You'd be like, because we didn't know. It was just so weird.
I'm just trying to figure out why somebody want to take a picture of me in the first place.
Comes up to me like, oh my gosh, can you take a picture? And then looks at me like, will you take a picture? And I'm like, well, I take a picture of you and my husband. Like, that's just weird. And then you want to hug up with him too? Like, that ain't right.
I don't know what's happening. So I started realizing that I need to have a plan. Like, I need a plan. I need to scout somebody else walking by. Excuse me, sir, could you take this picture?
Or someone else there with or something.
And then it goes to, okay, you can take a picture with both of us.
I don't want to be in that person's picture.
Exactly. But then you have the prerogative to say that. Mm-hmm. I know you don't want to be in a picture, but it's better for me to say.
And they don't want me in their picture either.
That's fine. Y'all work it out.
Listen,
but
whatever.
It's better for me to go ahead and say that. Yeah. I learned that.
Yeah,
that was a side lesson.
Yeah, that was a side conversation. But yes, identity was where it just got rubbed, where I realized that I had my identity in a lot of other things, and now I wasn't sure how to take on this wife identity. And my identity was in my work, and now I didn't have that. My identity was in succeeding. I had nothing that I was climbing the ladder towards. And so, it was a very humbling time, I think, and that probably caused a lot of rifts in our relationship as well early on, because it's like I was kind of lost and not knowing, like, all the things that mattered before, I didn't have them anymore. And so I think God was working on breaking down some of those ideas that I thought were important.
Yeah, I think identity, I think I learned, and I still have to deal with this, but I learned that my identity was not necessarily in football, even though that was a big part of my life. My last game, it was the year I turned 40. And so it's a big part of my life. But also identity just in being perfect.
Oh yeah, that was a big one. For you.
Yeah, so there's identity in perfection and in a self-gained, earned perfection that is totally antithetical to grace. Now, as a believer, clearly, by grace you are saved through faith, and I know all those things, and internally, and truly believed all that. But it's amazing how when you feel like you should be living a certain way in your spiritual life, and you aren't, you understand grace, but you also feel like, okay, I should be able to do better. Like part of us wants to earn righteousness.
For sure.
Especially,
do something.
Especially if we grow up, knowing about, the Bible, or growing up many people grew up, going to church. I mean, church wasn't a foreign thing. We heard about Jesus, those sorts of things. So we have a certain expectation upon ourselves that, yes, okay, I know I'm condemned. I know I need the blood of Christ, but I also feel like I'm pretty good. And if I'm not pretty good, that's on me because I know better. Mm-hmm. There's something to that. But then on the flip side, when it came to football, anytime I would make a mistake in my personal life, I was really down on myself. But then in my football life, anytime I would fail or have a bad practice, and bad meaning didn't do everything that I was taught to do a few hours before in the meeting room. Mm-hmm. Anytime I felt like I fell short in a game or a practice or a meeting or got yelled at by the coach, like it was a shot to my perfectionism. And my identity and my ego.
Pride.
And my pride. Yeah, and my pride. You mouth the P words. But the perfection is even more the pride.
It is.
Yeah. And so I learned through several instances and through visiting professionals about it, psychiatrists and all that sort of thing. I walked away with the words, it's okay. Mm. And I remember sitting there with a physician, a mental health physician, and going through a litany of different things that had happened in my life, and just kind of, laying on the proverbial, couch, even though it was a chair, and just saying, it's okay. Like, it's okay to fail. It's okay to fall short. It's okay. I mean, it's not preferred, but we're all human beings. You're a human being as a football player. You're a human being as a husband. You're a human being as a believer. Like, it's okay. Like, it was always okay for somebody else,
but not for you.
But not for me.
You would give that advice to other people.
Oh yeah,
but it would not apply to you. And that was what was crazy.
Because I got to be perfect.
Yeah, but everybody else, it's okay, dude. Like, you can't do that 100% all the time. But you would never give yourself that grace. And
so and I mean, that's still an ongoing battle. I think that for many of our battles that we have in life, we sometimes they're totally eradicated and taken away. Sometimes we learn how to cope and we learn how to combat them, and we learn the signs of when we're going off on a deep end, so to speak. And sometimes we struggle with that thorn in your flesh for a very long time. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of different ways that happen, but the most important thing is being able to identify it, whatever it is for you, and move past it, because whatever happens in our professional, personal lives, many times that transfers over into the spiritual as well.
For sure. That's good. Well, speaking of New England again, one thing I learned leaving there after 5 years was this idea, like the role of other people's voices and the role of media. And so very early on, because of your profession, you could turn on the TV in the afternoon on any day of the week, and they're going to talk about the Patriots. You're going to turn on after a game, and we're going to have an after show about the Patriots game and who performed well and who didn't perform well. And so I learned very
the up arrow and the down arrow.
Exactly. I learned very early on that I had to be mindful of what I take in and other people's opinions, and always know what the truth. And so I remember there was one girl who said, like, she says, we don't get the newspaper, we don't turn on the news. And I was like, wow, that's intense. But it wasn't until after that first season that I kind of saw, like, this could be really damaging, because you're never as good. I mean, it's nice to look and see your names in lights and see you caught the winning touchdown and this, that, and the other. But on the same token, it's really hard to sit in a stadium and you drop a ball because you're not perfect. Mm-hmm. And then what people say and what people do and how they boo and how they think your paycheck should be taken away because you missed the ball. And I'm like, excuse me. And so I had to be mindful going forward, like, what am I going to let into our home? The home has to be safe. And so I just realized that we had to make sure that the home was safe, and that we had to be mindful of the media that we let in when it came to what you did. Because again, this is what you do. It's not who you are. And so that's where I learned that. So like when you walk into our house, you would have no idea that a professional athlete lived there. Why? Because it's what you did and not who you were. And so that started very early on in New England, because, they were expecting that you were perfect.
It's serious up there.
They are serious.
It's great in a number of ways because it's a great sports town, it's a great sports market. You know,
right.
Some places
everybody was winning. I mean, every sport won.
And some places we've been, they're like, oh man, the media is so. I'm like, dude, you have no idea. Unless you play sports in Boston or in New York.
Yeah.
Maybe in Dallas, just because it's Dallas.
Yeah.
You don't understand the media.